It was complicated.
It was complicated.
Not to have the mom immediately being accepting and loving.
Lovely. Well done.
A plus bravo.
Hello, welcome to Queer Cinema Catchup. I'm Joe.
I'm Alison.
And this is the podcast where we talk about movies, TV, and miscellaneous topics through a queer lens.
And we do this because a long time ago we were neighbors who loved movies. We loved movies so much we made them together in the backyard with the camcorder. And then I had to move away, and it was very sad for us.
Like Alison said, she moved to Pennsylvania, but then over time, nearly 15 years later, we both ended up moving to LA and becoming roommates, discovering that the other was queer. If you had the choice between Seattle, Philadelphia, and London, what would you have chosen?
As a 14-year-old girl, London, obviously, I want to go to Hogwarts.
Well, I bring that up because today we're talking about the movie Beautiful Thing, which takes place in England. I don't think in London.
The movie is set and filmed in Thames Mead, London, which is a south area in London. And I believe, at least at the time of the film, in the 90s, a working class area. I don't know if that is still the case today.
Beautiful Thing came out in 1996, England, gay storyline. And it holds a special place in my heart because I watched it probably when I was really young, like 15 or 16. And it just really resonated with me. It's one of my favorite movies from that time. Another one is Shelter that I'd like to do on the podcast eventually.
Oh my gosh, when I was looking up Reddit kind of reactions to this movie, everyone kept saying, you should watch Shelter.
Yeah. And I forget how, like, I was using the internet at the time, and I definitely like watched these movies for free, probably illegally, but I loved them. I was very moved by them. I was gripped that they were showing these relationships of men, in this case, teens, having not only an intimate physical relationship, but a very emotional relationship too. And I thought it was really lovely.
Well, one thing I found out about this film was that it actually was made for TV, and it's based on a play, but then it was so well received that they ended up putting it into the theater. And so I do feel like there's this kind of like endearing, like homey quality to the film that does kind of feel like a made for TV movie. But then because it's so affecting and the performances are so moving and it is a kind of a story of love, I feel like it was really winsome, maybe to use that word. And at the same time, it very much feels like a film from the 90s, and there's some kind of unusual, like quirky elements that also kind of make it feel like cozy in a way, like you're kind of back in 1996 or 7 watching this film.
Yeah. Is it 96 or 97?
What would be your guess? Because you're very good at this.
I'm going to say 96.
You're right. And just to give you a little bit of background, Beautiful Thing is a 1996 British romantic comedy. I guess so. I guess it is a romantic comedy. Film directed by Hetty MacDonald, released by Channel 4 Films. The screenplay was written by Jonathan Harvey, based on his own original play of the same name. And as I just said, the film was originally intended for television, broadcast only, but it was so well received that it was subsequently released in the cinemas. The atmosphere of the film is heavily influenced by a soundtrack consisting almost entirely of music by the Mamas and the Papas and Mama Cass Elliot. Would you agree with that statement?
I would.
It's fact. All right.
I would. The only thing I'd kind of disagree with is I wouldn't call it a romantic comedy.
I agree.
It's not a romantic comedy.
And why would you say that?
Well, I feel like romantic comedies, like, there should be some type of meet cute. It
doesn't follow the formula.
It doesn't follow that's a simple way to put it.
And I feel like even though it has happiness in the ending and strength in the ending, I would say, and it is not a film of tragedy, which so often was the case with early queer cinema, or we'll call it early queer cinema, 90s and 2000s queer cinema. But at the same time, there is a lot of darkness explored in the film too, and so romantic comedy makes it sound like fluff.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fluff.
It's not fluff.
I usually do the little quick plot summary, but I don't know. Do you want to do it today? I feel like I'm feeling like I want to take a back seat and I don't want to do the work.
It's a story of self-discovery where a teen boy who is not quite fitting in with the other boys in school and also is struggling with the relationship with his mom in a working class family in an apartment complex that is the most that is kind of the setting of the majority of this movie. A lot happens at this apartment complex.
That feels very play of it to be kind of in one movie.
Like
yeah,
it.
me too.
It's dealing with coming to terms with sexuality, like kind of like a coming of age story also.
The two boys in the film who fall in love are neighbors, and one lives with a single mother, is already having trouble fitting in at school, and the other, and that boy's name is
Jamie and Steve.
Steve.
Is that it?
Yeah, it's Steve. Well, Jamie's the one who's kind of being bullied, living with his mom, and then Steve, he lives next door with his father and his brother. It's implied that his father is an alcoholic and that his father and brother are abusive toward him, and they don't seem to have a maternal figure in the home either. But Steve otherwise fits in at school, but the abuse in his home prompts Jamie's mother to let him stay one night, which kind of sparks this connection between Steve and Jamie. And this ends up being more turbulent for Jamie, I would say, Steve, I would say, than Jamie, who comes across as kind of tortured in the beginning internally, but then becomes the stronger of the two, I would say, in a very satisfying kind of way.
Yeah, that's a great description. I love just how in the beginning it's like Jamie's kind of like coming to terms with his sexuality, but then at a certain point he just kind of decides that he likes Steve and he would like to form a relationship with him and would like to pursue him and also learn about the gay community. And so I liked there wasn't too much of a transition. He's kind of like, he was like, I'm just going to go for this. I'm going to take a magazine from the store, learn about gay culture, and make a move on Steve.
The gay times.
His name is Steve. That's right?
It's Steve. Should I look up the origin of the name?
Sure.
The name Steve means crown and has an English origin. It is a relatively short name with 3 letters, and it holds significant appeal due to its powerful meaning. In terms of popularity, Steve ranks 208,018 in the U.S., indicating that it is a unique name. But I guess, you know what? It's probably a nickname for Steven.
Okay.
All right. That concludes the
Steve section of this.
linguistic section of
But we might dip back into linguistics every now and then.
I mean, we do love to get academic. Do you want to talk about kind of the critical reception? Or I kind of feel like we were already diving into the movie, and I mean, we could talk about our favorite moments, our WTF moments.
I do love how you said you want to take a back seat, but yet it seems like I'm taking a back seat more than ever.
What I meant was just for the summary.
Oh.
Even though I don't like to drive in real life.
Do you not enjoy driving?
Not really. When I was in college, I was on a mock trial team. And part of being on a mock trial team meant you would go to competitions in different states. My senior year, I was one of the few 21-year-olds on the team. There were only 3 of us. And apparently there was some rule where if you were 21, you could drive, but if you were younger than that, you could not. And we had no adults. So I called my mom. I got to drive to New York City in a giant van. And I'm telling her about this. And she goes, what? What? What if you kill someone? I remember I was with our friend Emily, and I hung up, and I was like, this is my mom. So we were like laughing, but I was inside. I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And then I remember we drove there. It was like the scariest drive of my life. And then I was so happy when we got into the city and crossed the bridge.
You drove through New York City?
Yeah.
In a giant bus?
Giant van. No, like a big car, like a big van for like maybe 8 people. Like it was a big car.
That's big.
And then Bibi Albanez's parents came to the tournament and they watched, and they were always very supportive, wonderful people. And then it was time to leave, and they could tell I was terrified. And then they like very painstakingly drove through New York City, and the tournament was at Columbia, like through the different areas, and then got me onto the bridge. And it never would have happened if they hadn't helped me.
Oh, because you wouldn't have known to GPS.
I mean, I think we had GPS. I think I just would have been so panicked, and just knowing that they were right there was really comforting. So thank you. Thank you to them all these years later. Not that they're going to hear it.
To tie this back into Beautiful Thing, there was a real lack of cars in this movie. And I think that ties into the beginning of this movie. Starts out with Jamie's at a football practice.
Correct.
Doesn't appear to be dressed for football
They're
practice.
not wearing cleats.
Are none of them wearing cleats?
I don't think so, because then there's the whole plot point where we find out Steve was wearing his brother's cool sneakers,
Yeah,
and
they're
that's
sneakers.
prompts some bullying. But
Okay.
Jamie definitely wasn't wearing cleats either, because when he left the field upon being bullied,
I think it's something we're not understanding with the dress.
Well,
Because I
what's
imagine it's like
school?
you pop up after school, like football's such a big deal over there, as you maybe don't wear cleats when you're just practicing after school with your friends.
Maybe it's sort of like winter soccer, indoor soccer. We didn't wear cleats.
This felt more like a fall summer movie to me.
I mean, you're right. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking around.
So Jamie walks home, and then his mom, we're introduced, she's like pushing a shopping cart.
This
and
scene actually confused
sees
me.
her son from a distance and looks furious. Begins like running with the cart towards him. Cut to, he's already in the house. She shows up, but seems to be kind of chill again.
Okay, this is what I don't understand. She looks angry, and I didn't really realize that it was still part of the school day, so he was kind of cutting school, which is why she was mad and racing home. But then when she got inside, she didn't yell at him. But
That's
maybe,
what I'm saying.
maybe that actually was intentional to show her character, where she does have this kind of hot streak to her.
She
But then
has a hot streak to her, would be an understatement.
this woman, they claim that she's only 35.
There was something with age. Okay, I did find out that the guy who said that he was 27 was 32 at the time.
I guess it goes back to my no sunscreen. I mean, that's really not very kind of me, but it goes back to my no sunscreen theory. People back then didn't wear sunscreen.
You thought he looks older than 32?
Yes.
I mean,
Did you not?
Well, yeah, but I'm sure they were all smoking a lot.
That's
and
true.
Drinking a lot, and
So yeah, it kind of captures the mom's character, where it was confusing in the moment, but she has these kind of intense emotional reactions, has a strength, has an anger to her, but then the presence of her son, something shifts, and she's able to be more present and compassionate. And I say that would be carried throughout the entire movie.
yeah. And it was pretty shocking to watch this movie again because I hadn't seen it probably since I was like 17 or 18.
Yeah.
And I just remember like loving this movie, being so just enamored by Steve and Jamie's relationship. I was very shocked though watching this time how young they are.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense.
They're teenage boys. Like it was just so weird. Like I was so close in age to them
Before.
or the people they're portraying that now as like a 33-year-old, it was like very, I was like, oh my God, these are children on the screen.
But I really appreciated that because it is so it is a beautiful thing to watch. Like they are so young, and it's just really endearing. Like the scene where the beginning of when Steve comes to Jamie's house because of what's happening in his own home, they decide that they're going to sleep tip to toe. What's the head to toe?
Head to toe.
And they're just in Jamie's room, and Jamie has these like glasses on that he's never worn, and he looks like so nerdy and
Alison
young.
looks just like, he looks like such a nerd. At first I was like negative, but then you seem to be like endeared by
it
it.
was. He just made it look younger, even younger than he is, and they're just kind of connecting and
Yeah.
having like almost like a sleepover, like when
Yeah.
because they're kind of on the edge of adulthood and childhood. So anyway, I just really found it very endearing.
And another thing in my memory is I don't remember. I always thought, like, yes, Jamie was the more like nerdy, quiet one, and that Steve was like the like jock that kind of was rough around the edges. But then watching this, I was like, they're both such big softies.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
And Steve had such big baby eyes that you're like, oh, I want to protect you.
Yeah. And then I had looked up. Could we quickly read through who the actors' names?
Sure, of course. Glenn Barry as Jamie, Scott Neal as Steve, Linda Henry as Sandra, Jamie's mother, Ben Daniels as Tony, Sandra's boyfriend, which I would say is the most confusing. Tony's fate confuses me the most this entire film, but we'll get back to that. Tamika Ebsen as Leah, the neighbor character who I think made sense to me, but I think there was an element. So we also had trouble understanding the accents. I think we lost some detail.
I was looking up, and the actor who plays Jamie is married to a woman in real life with kids, and the actor who plays Steve is gay in real life, or at the very least is married to a man.
Whoa.
So
That's so, what a beautiful thing.
what a beautiful thing.
I just think to be a queer person in a queer film, it's kind of, when you're that young and you're kind of coming into your identity, it's got to be helpful. I kind of think about that weirdly with the boy who plays Will in Stranger Things as well, since he actually is gay.
Can you believe how long ago was Stranger Things came out? I saw a picture of Winona Ryder at like the premiere with the kid actors. They're children.
I know.
Like young children.
It's like the Harry Potter effect.
It's so bizarre seeing Winona.
Winona.
I'm just such a surprise.
Winona.
Glenn Barry, who played Jamie, was born in 1978, so he was around 18 years old during production.
Okay.
Scott Neal, who played Steve, was born in 1976, making him 20, which shocks me that
Wow.
that Jamie was younger than Steve.
I agree.
Linda Henry, who played Sandra.
Not an unattractive person. She just didn't look 35. But let me guess, she's 30.
33 during filming.
Just to be that young. A little bit older than I imagined them to be, but to be that young.
But they're portraying
younger people.
Yeah.
In the same way that you found the film formative and helpful and encouraging, I would imagine it felt similar for the actor who plays Steve, and that itself is a beautiful thing to kind of think of the way art is mirroring life, and then how that movie, maybe even today, if some kid finds it on the internet, could find it informative too.
I hope so.
So I thought we could kind of, and quickly I'll just say this film is very critically acclaimed, even though it feels very much of its time and does kind of have a TV movie vibe to it. It is commended by contemporary critics. The film holds a 91% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and the site's consensus reads, an engaging slice-of-life drama that happens to double as a gay coming-of-age story. Beautiful thing captures its place in time with deceptive depth and skill. Much better than calling it a romantic comedy, I would say.
Definitely much better. Well, I want to take you back to, I was Googling today at work, and I came across a live journal entry by this person called The Prince and Him on May 23rd, 2009.
Okay.
While this movie has been hailed as one of the best gay films of all time, going so far as to come in second in after Elton's 50 greatest gay movies, I personally find it to be the most overrated piece of gay cinema. Albeit it was filmed in the 90s, which I find to be an aesthetically awkward period. But the characters were shells, and the film lacked the charm of a strong soundtrack or supporting actors that typically carry indie films towards success.
A strong soundtrack?
Yeah.
It's Mama Cass that you're insulting, sir.
When they arrive at the Gloucester, the two are hit on by a drag queen and pass the rest of their time staring gawkishly at the couples making out around them.
They don't do that.
Montage where they run through the woods and kiss against a tree. Gag. So cheesy they look uncomfortable, as though the director just said, kiss now, okay, stop. The song in this scene is actually not too bad, though, compared to the rest of the movie's soundtrack.
So this person doesn't, it was make your own kind of music. This person doesn't know about Mama Cass.
But it's just so funny to read through this because every now and then it sounded like he was just making, like, stating a fact, but then he'd throw his own little commentary that had like a negative implication, or he'd use the word.
I quite liked that sequence of them running in the, it was dark, so it's a little scary because it was nighttime, but I thought it was really, that to me captured, like, these are kids and they're like chasing each other in the woods, but they also love each other. And it's like, make kind of your own music and cheesy and sweet.
It should be cheesy and sweet.
I was really moved by it. I will say that they didn't have the best chemistry when they were kissing. I did kind of, that thought did kind of cross in that scene. And the other scene, I thought they did, but there was a little bit like.
I didn't mind it. My problem is the setting. They clearly didn't have enough to like light this forest very well. So it did kind of look like a
horror movie.
It looked like a Sleepy Hollow forest.
I kind of liked that because it felt real, you know, and that's kind of what made me feel enchanted by it. And then I found on Reddit people love this movie, and somebody, I can try and find it right now, but somebody said something like, I went to London and I went to the woods where they kissed.
What?
Because it's near, and that bar is a real gay bar in that area. So they were very true to the place. And anyway, I thought that was, let me see if I could find the guy's person saying about the woods. Oh, okay, here, this person 11 years ago on Reddit said, changed my life. Put it in context. It's 18 years old. I'm 18 years old. No, it's 18 years old, the movie, 11 years ago. Stunning piece of work for its time, I think. Very small number of theaters played in the U.S. The scene where Steve is leaning over to kiss Jamie in bed. For the first time ever, I saw that someone was portraying what I had felt so many times before, the fear and uncertainty, that someone else out there knew what it felt like, and then to go back and rewatch it and pick up on all the cues and clues you missed the times before between the characters. On a trip to London a few years later, I visited Thamesmead, where it was filmed. The wood where they kissed, right nearby, the bus stop right there. It's all very realistically set and staged, except the bus is going the wrong way, I think.
And that destroyed my opinion of the movie.
This film does not shy away from the struggle, especially for Steve, and like the internal struggle or the kind of reactions they're going to get among their particular community, which is working class, or the difficulty they might face. It still ends with them choosing one another and Jamie's mom supporting them. And it's a working class film. And I just feel like, you know, who in TV, in media, but also in life, like one who gets portrayed and gets to like see themselves as gay on the screen. Often it's white characters, often it's men, and often it's people who are like love Simon, like of a very comfortable background. And then in real life, it's like who has less barriers toward coming out, you know? And so I just think like the fact that this is set in among like a poor group of people also sets it apart, maybe, if that makes sense.
I'm confused how we went from the guy's Reddit post to that analysis.
Oh, you're right.
But it's true. Yeah.
Well, because he's saying it's a happy film. So not only like, is it, okay, well, you're right. I kind of went ahead. But it's a happy film. Like there's not a lot of gay, at that time too, a lot of films that were gay that ended with, well, I wouldn't say it's a wholly happy ending. The Beautiful Thing. Would you agree?
I would not.
Say more.
I mean, should we just say the ending really quick?
I think so.
The movie ends, and this is probably the only scene that I really remember before going back and watching this.
When you saw it the first time?
It's probably been like
11
12,
years.
15 years since I saw this.
Did you write that Reddit post?
Yeah, it was like the scene I remember from the movie. Is I just remember Jamie and Steve are like dancing on like the concrete patio
of their apartment
complex. And like the concrete, like even for this movie being made for TV, I think like the setting was just like perfect for it though. Like I don't think it needed to be.
I agree.
So like fancy and overdone. It felt more real, and so I think it really worked in its favor. But yeah, I just remember Jamie and Steve dancing on this concrete patio, and then I remember like people circling around them, and I couldn't remember if the people around them joined in or not. But I just remember them like just really like that's what stuck with me the most. And I remember is Sandra the mom?
Yeah.
Well, she kind of looks like Sandra Hüller in a way. She reminds me of her. I just remember the mom Sandra like looking from above, watching her son. I forget she goes down there too. But yeah, it's like the image that struck me of the movie is them dancing on the concrete patio.
I found it really affecting because they've kind of both just embraced that they love each other, are going to be together, and they've told that, well, Jamie's mom has found out by following them to the Gloucester. I might have said that wrong now. I'm questioning myself, but that's fine. And anyway, at the end of the movie, they're like preparing to go out again. They've told their neighbor friend who's going to go out too with them. They're going to go to the gay bar. They're going to have a great life. And they're kind of on the stairway of their apartment complex. And the whole time you're seeing all these like kind of local color characters pop up in the background. So you're very aware it's a kind of a hustle bustle. People are living on top of each other kind of a place. And then I think Jamie says to Steve, dance with me. And then the camera holds on Steve looking out. And it seems like he's looking to make sure the coast is clear. And that's kind of what I interpreted that as, because there's so in queer film, especially older queer film, the idea is like, is this a safe place to like show affection? It was coming across to me. Mm-hmm. But then they go out to dance in this patio and you don't realize it until the mom and the neighbor are up on the higher area looking down, that they're dancing in the middle of everybody. And it's like, it's kind of almost surreal. Like it feels a little bit like both real, that it would attract attention, but also not real, because they're all like in a circle, almost like an event is happening, watching them dance. And the mom is kind of looking down, the neighbor's looking down, and then the neighbor says, will you dance with me? And the mom doesn't hesitate and like grabs her hand, and the two of them go down to dance with the boys in sort of solidarity. And I think you said that the mom looked like a hawk, kind of like looking around everyone, having this protective energy. And I would completely agree. And And they kind of linger on everyone's faces. And I kept saying as we were watching it, oh, they're all going to join in. They're all going to join in. But then you just kind of see some like looks of judgment, some looks of like laughter, and then some like contented faces. But nobody else kind of joins this this dance. And I feel like in a rom-com or like even like a Shakespeare comedy, everybody would dance. Like that's the kind of ending you'd expect. But instead, you're just kind of left with this these two characters who have chosen one another and they don't care about the outside world. A mother who does care about the outside world, but only in the way that she's there as like as someone to step in or a shield, and isn't going to say, don't do that because you're going to attract attention. And then there's the outside world and their reactions, and it almost doesn't matter.
I'd say like that's where the title comes in. Like I think that's what makes it such a beautiful thing, is that these two like boys have found each other, and like in spite of this opinion, like they have each other at the very least. And then Jamie has his mom's support too. I think like that's the beautiful thing for me, is that they are wanting to be themselves in spite of the environment around them that are judgmental and don't want them to be that way.
Agreed. And it kind of takes me back to my other favorite part of the movie, which was the first time. So there's one scene where the boys, are connecting and they're sleeping head to toe and nothing really happens. And then the next time he's there to sleep, Steve's over at Jamie's. He's been hurt by his parent and is like bruised. So this is a little bit comical, but Jamie offers to put on some foot lotion that he happens to have in his room.
Was it foot lotion?
Yeah, that's the one thing. It was hard to understand their accents sometimes, but he was like, I got this foot lotion. Like, I have some foot lotion. I don't know.
You do like a Swedish accent.
I can't do it on command. I'm broken. All right, anyway. So it's hard to understand what he was saying, but he definitely said foot lotion. And then he like puts the
foot lotion on his back.
But it's just very like awkward, but also sweet, but just, I don't know. But then anyway, this kind of, and then the mom's like pounding the door being like, come watch The Sound of Music with me. And Jamie's like, no. And then something shifts where,
I mean, what makes that dark but funny in a way is, didn't him and his mom get in a huge fight earlier?
I think that might have been after, but
she kept came back and like asking about The Sound of Music and asking who starred in The Sound of Music and all that stuff.
I think that was still like her being like sweet to him, So I thought like, oh, come watch the movie with me, honey, kind of thing. And anyway,
so Jamie's got foot lotion on Jamie's got foot lotion on Steve's back,
and then Jamie says, turn over, I'll do the front of you. And then something shifts where Steve kind of feels like something is different here, and he's not sure about it. And he goes, no, your mom's going to hear me. I'm like in too much pain. But then he says, well, come sleep up here with me, like head to head. And he's like, no. But then the lights go off or something like that. And then he does. And then he says like this very endearing line where he goes, are you happy now? And it's sort of like gruff, but also really sweet. And then I don't remember exactly what is the lead up to them sharing this kiss. I think Jamie is the one who just goes for it and gives him a kiss, and he pulls away, and Steve says, what, do you think I'm a queer? And then Jamie said the most remarkable thing that I've never heard someone say in a movie or a moment like that. He goes, well, does it matter what I think?
That's really powerful.
It's extremely powerful.
Saying like it only matters to you how you feel about yourself, not what I think.
Yes.
Yeah, because usually it's like, you shouldn't care what other people think.
Yeah.
But like to put it on yourself and be like, it doesn't matter what I think.
Or for him to be like, no, I didn't think that, I misunderstood. Or like to have this reaction where he's trying to take it back. That doesn't happen. He's like so in his own choice, and also has the presence to say that the only reason you're asking that question is because it matters to you and is upsetting you, and you need to kind of work on that. I was just like, whoa.
And that's what makes this movie is beyond made for TV, because I think it was a really, really strong script.
Honestly, it's the thing I'm going to remember about the movie. That and the dancing scene and the scene of them running through the woods, I'm going to remember the most.
But Mama Cass, you're just going to leave out in the cold.
I love Mama Cass.
Leah Russell has this fixation on Mama Cass, which the Mamas and the Papas made great music.
Truth.
But yeah, there was also an element of Jamie's room was full of American iconography, like Lucille Ball, Elvis Presley, and there's a big Madonna poster. And this whole movie started out too where we didn't talk about, but Leah and Sandra kind of like butt heads a lot. They're both like very strong-headed people.
Yeah.
And they don't see eye to eye most of the time. And Leah's like all fixated about Mama Cass, and then Sandra's like, why don't you like you should be like Madonna. Like that's who you should like. And
she says no.
Leah's like, no, I'm with this old soul.
The part that confused me, so there were some details in the synopsis that I missed in the movie. Like Leah has dropped out of school. And that when she dresses up like Mama Cass in the middle of the night and goes out into the main area of the apartment and is singing very loudly and wakes everybody up. I thought she was just drunk, but apparently she's high on some unknown substance, which makes a lot more sense given her behavior.
Yeah.
But then what really confused me about this was then the boyfriend character of the mom who, you know, he's kind of like this, like, he drives a big Brady Bunch van. He wears a kimono bathrobe. He's got long surfer blonde hair. He wears a puka shell necklace. He's very much reading as sort of the progressive one in the group.
He's always wearing Sandra's like robe for a lot of the movie.
Yeah. Okay. And he's very like he's kind of got a calming presence, and compared to all these like high energy side characters. But anyway, he decides to help Leah, which seems like a kind, good thing to do. But for some reason, this seems to spark Sandra to decide to break up with him.
Yeah, I was reading people were posting and they were confused about this too. I do think there was something about Leah spread a rumor about how Sandra had like a miscarriage or something like that when she was younger, or that Sandra's like sleeping around and not faithful with the boyfriend. I don't, because there was something where she was like walking outside, she had her cousin with her, and I was like, we didn't know she had a baby. And then
it was
the boyfriend's like, like you and your baby. She's like, it's not my baby, it's my cousin. You think I would just sleep around? And then she says some like sassy line, and we were like, you and I both were like, if we knew what she said, I'm sure it would have been
and then we realized it was really important to hear what she said, because they go to this party, Steve and Jamie, and the boyfriend tells the mom what was said, but he says it in a way he's concerned, like, I don't know. And I still don't understand what he said, where he was like, I don't know about you and this thing. And then she's furious. And we just see her like running out of the apartment, running to this party of teenagers, and then like attacking a child, attacking Leah.
And she attacks her son earlier in the movie too, which was a strange and really intense moment.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What happened there again?
Some physical violence. It was like, it ties back to, you know, Jamie was seen as an outcast. I never really read him that way though. If anything, it seems like he was like really fine with kind of being a lone wolf.
Yeah.
It didn't really seem to matter to him. But his mom calls him weird, I think, and is like, or does he say like, why do you think I'm weird or something like that?
And she says, no, I don't think she does. She says something kind of mean to Steve, I think, and this is post their moment together. And then Jamie kind of, as a teen will, gets kind of, without really explaining to his mom why, starts being really mean to her as a result of the way she's treated Steve. And then then they go inside, and he says, you're a bad mom. I forget what he says. It's just kind of like cruel stuff. And then she starts slapping him like over and over again. But then it shifts because they break apart.
Well, he shoves her on the chair.
Oh.
And then she starts slapping again, and they both kind of fall to the floor.
And then I think he says I'm weird or something like that. And then she goes, no. And that's when she snaps back and she goes, no, you're all right. You're all right.
But then doesn't she say something along the lines of like, you think I'm a bad mother, or I'm a bad mother, or something like that?
And then she says later to Steve something like, you know, you think life is easy. Like, you know, you have to have me as a mom. Like, life's not easier or something like that. I guess there are parts we forgot or that we missed, even though we just watched it. And another thing we should add is that when the mom does confront Jamie about how he is possibly, like, there's bullying because people think you're saying you're queer, you have this gay Times under your bed, and I saw you go to the gay bar with Jamie, what's going on? And she's angry. And honestly, I was thinking this is going to turn very dark. But the second he starts to cry, it's every time he shows like humanity or vulnerability, she is able to connect to her own human motherly self. And so she immediately says something like, hey, like, just talk to me, I'm your mom. Like, we'll figure it out or something like that.
Yeah. So doesn't that make sense of our confusion at the beginning of the movie, where the mom seems to be really furious and is chasing after her son, and then when she shows up in the house and sees him, then she like calms down.
Yeah.
It kind of seems like she has this hot streak, and she also like knows when to. She keeps information from people. Like she's planning to get a bar of her own, like to own a bar, and she's like hiding that information from her boyfriend. And this is all a big. We never finished the details, but yeah, she becomes angry at her boyfriend.
Yeah,
thinking that possibly that he was sleeping with Leah. I don't know why.
Oh, that honestly, she was so much younger that she looks so much younger than them that just like it just didn't cross my mind, but I guess so. And yeah, she the reason she doesn't tell anyone about her bar is because it's got an apartment above it, and so they'll be moving out of the complex and away from their community, and so she's wary of sharing this information, even though she really wants to have her and her son have this kind of new life somewhere else.
Not to be part of the giant concrete block anymore.
Yeah.
We're part of a concrete block in a way.
We are.
But everyone doesn't want to
Nobody talks
interact.
To us. Nobody talks to us. We only sit in this room. We talk to each other with microphones. No one wants to talk to us. I wanted to give a little bit of background on Jonathan Harvey, the writer, and now we're jumping to the part about class that I was very eager to get to earlier, but I want to just kind of read a quote from him about the reason he wrote this movie or this play originally. And side note, he actually got fired by his agent or manager because he wasn't writing enough, and he was very ashamed, and so then he went.
He got fired because he wasn't writing enough?
Yeah. Well, he got let go he didn't have representation anymore, so he went away for like several weeks or a month or whatever, and he wrote this play, and then guess who his new agent was? The world of the UK is small.
I couldn't name one agent that exists in the world.
His name was Alan Radcliffe. And it
Daniel
was
Radcliffe's
indeed,
dad?
Yes, became his new representation. And Daniel Radcliffe is a huge ally to the LGBTQ community. He's been said in interviews many times that he was, his father and his family had very many close queer friends, and he grew up among them. He feels very strongly about advocating for our rights. He has stood up for trans people in the wake of all the awfulness that J.K. Rowling has wrought several times. He's made statements saying that he does not agree, and I just think that is beautiful. Yeah. A beautiful thing to connect it back to his father, who read this play and said, I'm going to represent you in 1996, and we're going to put this play onto the stage. And then my son, who is probably a baby at this time, is very soon, wait, no, it's 1996. He's about to be in Harry Potter. He might already be in Harry Potter. Oh my God. Okay, I wrote Beautiful Thing quickly in the summer of 1992. It came from the heart. The age of consent debate was going on. Back then, gay men had to be 21 to have sex. The rhetoric used in Parliament was so archaic, with words like buggery and sodomy. I wanted to write a play about two boys falling in love and give it a happy ending. During the AIDS crisis, it was unusual for a gay character to still be alive at the end of a drama. Class was important too. Gay characters in Merchant Ivory films went punting, but if you were working class on screen, you would end up becoming a rent boy and selling your arse for 20 Woodbine cigarettes. My own experience, however, that was a little intense for me to read. My own experience, however, was that tolerance and acceptance were not just privileges of the upper and middle class.
Whoa. And
for context, Merchant Ivory is... I don't know. You've probably seen Merchant Ivory films. Like, I'm pretty sure.
I was going to ask you what that meant.
I'm pretty sure. A Room with a View, the movie with what's her name, Bellatrix Lestrange.
Helena Bonham Carter.
Yeah, it's basically like films based on British novels, or kind of like stuffy class movies. Does that make? And when I say British novels, I mean old timey British novels.
Oh, that makes sense.
And so, I think he might even be thinking of one of the very first. I'm so excited I get to talk about this fact right now, actually. E.M. Forrester, who wrote A Room with a View, was a gay man, closeted through his whole life, at least to the public. He was a very successful writer, wrote A Passage to India, among other novels. And when he died, this book came out called Maurice, which is the first gay novel, and he didn't want it to be released until after his death. it's dedicated to a happier year or a time where people couldn't be free to be themselves. But what's very interesting about the novel is it's about an upper class man who is gay, who kind of ends up falling in love with a lower class man, and class stuff definitely plays a huge part of the book. And so anyway, my point of this is that I really didn't have a point. It just kind of reminds me of what he's saying about class.
Yeah. Well, we could also talk about, it's not a British book, but it's a Scottish book, Young Mungo.
Oh, yes.
I feel like there's like some similarities, but it kind of ties back into, which I'd love to discuss because I don't know if we'll ever have an opportunity to talk about it again. But
so smart. I'm so glad you thought to do that.
Young Mungo, we talk about like gay movies. A lot of gay movies have sad endings, especially like pre-2010s, I'd say. And so this was like really unique to see Beautiful Thing. And then, as we mentioned, Shelter, I believe, has another happy ending to it also.
Thank God.
But Young Mungo was like a book written within the last 2 or 3 years that you and I both read a few months ago.
Super dark and devastating.
Dark and devastating. And so, I don't know. I feel like there were like some similarities
There definitely
to
are.
this movie. You and I, didn't we walk away with different interpretations of what the ending was?
Yeah, so just to give a quick summary, and then we can kind of describe the ending and our different reactions. Young Mungo is about a young working class Scottish boy, and I forget the time period it's set in, but maybe the 80s or the 90s.
It's the 80s.
The 80s. And also lives with a single mother, and in this case, the mother is an alcoholic. He has an older brother who's kind of gotten involved with like a local gang and is abusive toward Mungo, but he's trying to sort of toughen him up because Mungo's not really the fighting kind. And he ends up falling in love with this boy, James, who is living with his father, a single father, because his mother has passed away. He like tends to carrier pigeons, I believe, and he's a very soft, like kind person. But he's gotten in trouble in the past. I think his dad maybe knew that he was possibly queer to some extent, and so
it's revealed he had heard his son over the phone because his son would call into like basically a gay chat line.
Yeah. And so the dad and him have this kind of strained relationship, and so James is trying to like get a girlfriend at some point during the book, but then it kind of tracks their beautiful falling in love in one storyline, but then there's also the future storyline. It's told in 2 timelines, and in the future timeline, the very first chapter of the book is the mom watching Mungo go off with these 2 like older gross men and thinking to herself like, this is for the best.
I blocked that storyline
because it's awful.
From my memory, it's awful.
It's awful. And so then basically the mom, something happens where she finds out he might be gay. They find out about James. James gets beaten up. I don't even remember. Or maybe Mungo gets beaten up. I don't remember. And then the mom's like, I know what to do. I'm going to send him away with these strangers to toughen up and make him be a man. And these men go take him fishing. And they're like criminals. Like they both have been jailed. You find out that one of them was specifically jailed for being a pedophile. I'm sorry, this is very dark, everybody.
It's really dark.
And yeah, you can imagine what happens in their fishing trip. And I'm not even going to go into the details, but it is like the worst thing. You know what? You're getting me all upset about this again. This book was so upsetting. And he almost dies, Mungo. He almost dies. He almost drowns, but then he ends up, we're telling you everything. We're telling you everything. He ends up murdering one of the guys, which is good because this guy was a bad man. And then, also the scene. Do you remember the scene where he calls home and you kind of feel sympathy for him because he was like the nicer of the 2 men in a way, as I recall?
Yeah.
And he calls home and he's like talking to somebody, like a relative, and they're like, "You're not supposed to call." And he's like, "Yeah, I know. I'm not drinking anymore and I'm out of jail. I really just wanted to connect." And then the mom gets on the phone and she's like, "You are never to call again. You can't come around here." And all of a sudden you sort of realize that he's a pedophile. And you're like, oh my God. And your stomach drops because you know he's on this trip with Mungo, who's like 14 years old. All right. Anyhow, he murders one of these men. I forget what happens with the other guy, but he manages to get back home. And you're kind of like, is he going to find James? Because I think they talked about like running away to London or to Edinburgh or to somewhere else together. But James had wanted to go like work on a rig to make money. I can't really remember, which is what his dad did. So anyway, he gets back home and the police are coming.
But I don't know if it was tied to
I don't think it was.
Mungo's discovery.
I think, didn't Mungo like call because it's not quite necessarily tied to the murder, but it's sort of implied that something has triggered the police and there's like a fear that because he went off with these men maybe, and then he didn't do a very good job of like sinking the body. You know, who knows? Like maybe he could get in trouble.
He gets a ride
Back,
and it's this man who has children.
Oh.
And it's kind of hinted at that he can kind of tell that Mungo is queer because he brings up one of his sons being like, oh, I think one of my sons might be like you in a way.
like an artist.
An artist. So then I think that might, and then maybe he alerted the police or something to that degree.
That piece of information made me think it was more hopeful. Like, here's a taste of another world.
Yeah, I think it was hopeful.
But it was too, everything had been too dark.
Yeah.
And it came too late where you were like, wow, this probably means nothing to this boy who's now experienced so much terrible stuff in his entire life.
Yeah.
And then in the last like 2 days. So then he gets home and his mom and his sister are there and they're by the bus stop and they're yelling at him because the police are coming.
They're not mad at him though, are they?
I think
they got caught up in themselves. They almost forget that Mungo's there all over again. And Mungo's looking across the road and it seems like there's all these cars that are like driving by and it's saying that like James appears.
And that's the bus stop as well.
And is saying like, come away with me. And he's like waving to Mungo. But the description, I forget how he's described. I almost pictured him like wearing a cloak.
Yeah, I think it might have been.
Wearing a cloak and like say like, come away with me. But it was described in such a haunting way that when I read it, I interpreted it to like not literally be James. That James has been killed by his father.
It's a ghost.
It's a ghost.
To be honest, I think I was so traumatized by this book that I was like, thank God there's James. Like I could not. And I feel like I love an ambiguous ending. I love to pick up on a ghostly encounter, but my brain was not going to have it. It was like, no, he's going to leave. He's
the guy's wearing a cloak though. That's
I'm not sure. I just kind of want to agree with you. Yeah. Great book, but please only read, even though we just told you a lot of awful things, please only read if you feel that kind of dark material is something you might enjoy reading.
To compare and contrast Beautiful Thing and Young Mungo, though, aside from one being very, very dark, Jamie would be James in my mind, and then Mungo would be Steve. But as I'm saying this, like I don't think it matters. Beautiful Thing was very like unique in how they achieved it. Where like I didn't feel like one of them was like, I don't know. It was like Steve was having a harder time accepting his sexuality, and like Jamie was much more open to it. Whereas like James, I think never really came to the realization of his sexuality, but
I think he did. I feel like he was very, I think he was like, I am this way, but I can't, like I need to find a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like I just, you know what I mean? Whereas I feel like Mungo was younger and trying to figure himself out.
I guess maybe a better comparison for Young Mungo is that Italian movie.
Call Me By Your Name.
Call Me By Your Name.
I guess the connection I see though is that it's a working class setting. That's why I thought you were going with this. And so in that, and you see the darkness of young Mungo, which is like, wow, being poor and gay leads to nothing good. In fact, the opposite of anything good. And then there's this film, A Beautiful Thing, being like, no, it is a beautiful thing, period. No matter who you are, where you come from. And I mean, I guess we should have space for both stories. Because I mean, all stories reflect life, but it is nice that this movie can exist portraying working class people being queer and finding love and not getting abused, tortured, seeing ghosts.
Also, though, not sanitizing it so much to have the working class people dancing with the two boys.
Even though that's what I wanted to see. I agree. That it was complicated.
It was complicated.
Not to have the mom immediately being accepting and loving, to have like her harsh reaction and then soften. I so agree.
Lovely. Well done.
A plus bravo. And just to read a few more quotes to kind of solidify these themes. Here's Jonathan Harvey talking about the reaction to the play. I had a feeling it was good, but to see the rapturous response was like drinking your first glass of champagne. It was effervescent. And then he describes some of the actors at the time. Phil Glenister was laugh out loud funny as Tony. Patricia the mom was scary but warm and full of heart. And then he says, I had a panic the night my mom came to see it. She is nothing like Sandra, but there are conversations I had with her that are in the play. After she saw the film version, she said, please don't stop writing about the little people. That really moved me. That play helped me find my theatrical voice. It was the first time I had been honest in my writing, and it gave me the confidence to keep going.
That's so sweet. Who wrote that?
It's a quote from the writer, Jonathan Harvey.
That's so beautiful.
I agree.
That's another beautiful thing. Add it to the list of beautiful things about this movie.
It's like when you talk about this movie, that's the phrase. It's so aptly named. And I would say when watching it, or when you told me it was called, I was like, well, what a boring title. But it really is fitting.
It's a beautiful thing.
And
That's the beautiful thing about it. It's beautiful.
And the last thing I'll say about the play version of this is that the original staged version in 1993 had a graveyard slot in Edinburgh. So I imagine this might have been the Fringe Festival. And it was in a place called The Bush, which was this tiny space above a pub. It seated 80 and was quite claustrophobic, but the play is about people living on top of each other. So when the two boys, Jamie and Steve, were in bed talking, you really felt as if you were in there with them.
Wow.
Aren't these just such great quotes?
Yeah. Now I want to go see a play. What was that play called that we saw?
Frankie and Johnny and the Claire de Lune.
Yeah.
Which is, in an apartment.
In an apartment. It starts off with them in bed. It was like a very intimate setting. So we've experienced it to a degree.
And we've also experienced a play where we were in the front. 2 plays where we were in the front row, making eye contact with the actors.
Lavender Man
was amazing. So I thought you kind of alluded to it, that you saw this movie when you were 15 or 16, which is really interesting to me because I actually wanted to kind of ask what the first gay movie was that you ever saw, or like the first gay character. Was it this movie?
Maybe this movie. Maybe it was Shelter. I also remember for one of my birthdays, I really wanted to watch D Lovely for some reason.
What's that?
Cole Porter, was that a real person? Yeah, about an American composer and songwriter. And I was watching with my family.
And it was for your birthday?
It was like all my birthdays were like that. I was like, let's watch this movie. Which, reading about this, it already seems pretty gay. Because it's like about an American composer. Not that that's, you have to be gay to appreciate that. But
of course not.
There's a scene that it stars Kevin Kline and Ashley Judd. And there's a scene where Kevin like is secretly have a relationship with a man, like making out. I had my whole family come and watch this movie, and I felt so self-conscious. Like, actually, I don't want to watch this movie anymore. I had them stop it.
Did you right after that scene? Do you think that your parents knew
they
then?
Knew 5 years before that, I guarantee. But yeah, that probably.
Oh, that's really sweet. Because I was like, so that's interesting because I was like thinking about this, and I remember certain like gay characters. Like I remember Kurt from Glee, and there's this line early on in Glee where he kind of has a fake girlfriend in one episode, and then it kind of goes like he kind of implies he has a crush on somebody else, and she's really angry, and she sings a song about it, of course, because it was Glee. And then at the end, she comes and apologizes. She's like, I'm sorry, like I overreacted, and I know you like this other girl. And he's like, no, like that's not it. And he like comes out to her. She's like, whoa, oh my, and he's like really upset. And she's like, boy, I had no idea. I didn't know this was so upsetting for you. Like you just seem so confident. And he's like, well, maybe I'm not that confident. And he says very vulnerably. I remember being like really moved by this, like impacted and then not really having an idea as to why. And then we talked about like Erica Hahn on Grey's Anatomy, I think previously, about that kind of queer storyline, but I don't think I saw a movie centered around queer characters until after college. I'm pretty sure the first queer movie that I saw was none other than Carol. And I have to tell you, everybody, don't excommunicate me. Carol's a great movie, but it's very like
dry.
Muted. It's very muted.
It's dry.
And I don't really see the chemistry necessarily between
It's like a saltine cracker.
Kate Blanchett and Rooney Mara.
If you're hungry, you can eat it, but it's not that satisfying.
The more times I've watched it, I've grown to appreciate it, and I do think there's like a quiet power in it, and the ending especially is amazing.
Quiet power. All these goddamn lesbian movies with their quiet power.
A lot of yearning,
I want a loud
staring.
lesbian movie.
But isn't that wild that I wouldn't have seen? Like I was trying to think, and I was like, Battle of the Sexes, Battle of the Sexes, Rocket Man, Moonlight, Call Me by Your Name. All movies that came out after I was in college. I don't remember a single movie before that. So it's
That's wild.
I think it's a beautiful thing that you were able to go online and watch these movies when you were younger. And I wish I had done the same thing.
Well, here we are.
All I had was Kurt from Glee. Who we saw.
You.
I didn't want to say where.
And your celebrities.
Major takeaway. Great movie. I highly recommend. I think it probably has flown under the radar of many people, and I hope it starts lighting up the radar. And I was trying to think of a metaphor. Guys, I had coffee at 5:45 today, so it's not. It is evening right now.
I'm confused. Why are you going like this?
Because I noticed it's when I wear a bracelet. I think I like start to do stuff with my hands. Hey.
What is your takeaway?
I love that movie, and I'll be thinking about the line, it doesn't matter what I think, for the rest of my life.
Really?
I think so. It was a very unique response.
Well, that is just a beautiful thing. Queer Cinema Catchup is a podcast where we talk about movies, TV, and miscellaneous topics through a queer lens. Although we haven't really been talking about TV and miscellaneous topics for a while.
I guess for now.
But we bring them up within the podcast.
Joe has won the battle, but that's because TV's on a little bit of a hiatus. I think I'm going to be pushing for it once there's something to push for.
And that makes it a beautiful thing.
Bye.